insight on OpTic. Sensible, but still a massive...
Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
It's this morning that I come to all of you guys to share something that we've shared several times this year in gaming as well as esports, and that's yet again the loss of life.
Good, man.
Oh, I missed it. Oh.
Yeah, it's short, it's short. It's good that you can find it on Twitter probably. Yay. What is good? Everyone, I'm popping the chat out. There we go. I can go back over there. And we're good to go. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. We're back in business, baby. This is a full 3-man episode today. Lionman's going to be here for the whole time, I believe. You haven't got work today?
Oh, I do have work, but it's in like 3.5 hours.
It's a bit later, okay. So if we go 4 hours, then it's looking slow. Tell you, boss, it could be a busy one if all the rosters confirmed. But it's not going to happen. We're going to be good. We'll go for the classic hour and a half, something like that.
Yes, sir.
We're doing good. Hope the stream's doing okay. So yeah, we're back in business, baby. It's been an interesting week. Chrome went rogue. He let me know that he was going rogue. It was appreciated of him because that's the thing. Like when I do the videos, I have one video scheduled for 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. Eastern. So, and that's usually like announcement time, right? So if an announcement's going to happen, I don't want to just suffocate the video that's just gone live, because then it wastes potential if 2 videos have gone live at the same time. So ideally you want to make the other video live earlier or just cancel it at all, because obviously I had a second video planned for today that isn't going to see the light of day because LAG have confirmed, but that video might come out tomorrow. Maybe it gets saved another day. You know, it gets complicated here in Rostermania, ladies and gents. Got to plan these things out. Got to be on the ball, and we do our best.
Wait, did he tell you what was going to happen before he releases tweets?
Like he let me know that he was gonna release a tweet store. I didn't know which teams he was gonna announce in what order, but he said that he was gonna like bang out all the rosters that day, whenever he woke up. So I was hoping he woke up early enough, because then I could like do a video after a few of them. But yeah, it's interesting because there was something about like, I don't know what it was, but it was some rule about teams like, and how they were able to like talk to other players and stuff. And there was this weird thing going on, like why the teams didn't want rumors talked about too early because of some CDL rule. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I think that's maybe like Chrome was kind of delaying it a bit, but I don't know, it's a bit interesting. But we kind of know all the stuff now, so it's beautiful. We can talk about it today. And LNG confirmed a team.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We can get going pretty much whenever. I'm going to retweet that tweet, baby, because it was a beautiful one, Emma. I've got any pictures on the hard drive that I can just whip up.
The LAG team looks pretty good, to be honest.
I like the look of it, to be fair. I feel like it's kind of it's got some risk reward there. Like it has a really high ceiling. I mean, we'll talk about it obviously. But has a lot of potential.
Going to World War II, it's like very Rise Nation.
Agreed. They need to get Looney coach. It's my take.
Facts.
That's not a bad one.
But I mean, they already have a lot of coaching staff.
Do they?
Is Doug Lee
Do
still...
they? Do they? Do they?
I feel like they
Interesting.
have like
Interesting.
no one said anything. So
That's a good point. It's a good point, Austin. Very
Well,
interesting.
I didn't get to watch the video. Were they in the video?
That is a good question. I mean, I've got the video up right here. I don't believe so. It's just the players, right? So I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe Bevels and Ricky are out of there. Ricky
mean,
followed
going
me on
into,
Twitter the other day, so hopefully not. Seems like a good fella.
I don't know. Going into the year 3, I mean, a lot of people had 2-year contracts, so like a lot of people are gonna have to like re-sign this season. That's like what our coaches are going to have to do. So
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah,
Come on,
Brad
what is
Levin's
that?
stats might take your job.
Lionman primary host. Fucking arsony. Dickhead.
That's funny. No, it's just like
Ah.
these tweets. I tend to find whenever I like reply to a tweet, it gets way more traction. I don't know why.
No, it's true.
But
True,
like,
true.
so it's like this Kyler's COVID test bird or whatever. He tweeted out like it's always hey guys, it's touch grab rather than like hey guys, how's touch grab. I thought it was kind of funny, even though I should have been all right guys. But you know, forgiven. And like I don't know, I just replied with like a sad face and liked the tweet and it got like 600 likes. But I don't know how that happens. I mean, it was a good tweet, so I give him credit. But
Good.
still. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
we should crack on, baby. I think I've accidentally closed the stream, but it's okay. Should I find it again? Oh, no, we should be good. And we crack on, ladies and gents. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for the sub, Enigma. Appreciate you. I saw your tier list today, by the way. I saw Pac-Man hit the replies. Thought that's kind of funny. I thought your tier list was all right, to be fair. I had a brief browse, and I thought, you know, it's respectable. I don't know. I didn't look closely enough to say that to pick out any things that I necessarily disagree with, but don't know. Just saw you versus Pac-Man in the replies. Thought it was kind of funny.
What?
All right, superb.
What is
What are you
his
gonna say,
at? Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Nick, yeah, Nick, I think it's just Nick Brown
Got it, got
maybe
it.
something like that. Andrew, something or other.
I'm
Always get
gonna
cooked.
make
I mean,
one
those
as
are
well.
impossible, Nick. Those are impossible not to get roasted on. It is like there's no way you could avoid getting roasted some way or another. It's too hard. Like it's
yeah, you're
honestly
never
way
gonna be
too
able to
hard.
do those.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty.
There's a
Good.
couple you could switch in like the
Kenny
midfield, but
and
like
B. It's
Yeah,
kinda
I would.
interesting.
There's a couple in
Octane and
there that
B.
are kind of hot takes, but you know, I
okay,
don't mind
I
it.
don't mind Octane and B.
I don't
Octane and
mind
B
it.
after the last couple of years, you could definitely argue, but we can talk
Preset
about
and
that today.
C.
I would probably move up Pierce. I'd probably
I
move
didn't see where
Illy.
Gunless was.
He's in C. I think I'd probably move up a couple. I would probably move him up, and then probably move Drazah and Illy down the C. And then
Yeah, you may as well put it on.
Yeah, I can just bring it up real quick before we go on to dive into the show. Oh, here it is.
the problem is like once you get to like the BCD, there's only like so much that distinguishes those guys. It's so tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough. I mean, the thing is, like, you look at some of the players in like C, and you're thinking, oh well, they probably deserve higher. But then you look at the players above them, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
you know, these players don't really deserve to be lower than that. So that's where things get tough, you know.
Yeah. Because like almost all those guys are extremely inconsistent. So it's like on their best days they could be like A's, but on their worst days they could be D's. So it's like I guess in the B and C tier you're pretty much grading them on consistency instead of just potential. Because
Yeah.
pretty much all of them have a lot of potential. But I like
I'll
the
leave
Ben.
Parasite in there anyway, even if he didn't play in the leagues in stage one. I feel like he's caught a stray there.
I like
Yeah,
the
just put him in
Ben.
E.
Just chuck him
Yeah.
in.
I did like the Bance in A though. I thought that was like a little sleeper, like undervalued pick. A lot of people don't
Yeah,
value
I
him that
like
high.
that.
Like he could have easily been in B, but that one's not bad. I don't see anything like
I'd have probably done
truly
B, but
outrageous.
He didn't
it's
put
nice. You
form
gotta
on,
throw in
though.
a couple of hot takes. I guess Formula's out of there, right?
Yeah, but it's postseason,
Yeah.
not preseason.
I guess if Haggie's going to
Yeah.
be there, you throw formal in.
Yeah, hard. No
Anyway,
interactions.
play and Crim in A
Alright.
is mind blowing. I don't know. I feel like you can argue that. Like, I think you can definitely. I don't know. You got to look at results. I think like you look at Dallas and what they achieved this year. Like what 2 seconds, a third, and like a fourth, like something like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it's not just the Lionman card might say 72, but you know. Anyway,
Crim's card's good.
yeah, no, actually, no, true. Crim's card actually is really good. So that's my bad on that one. Anyway, let's dive in. That was a nice little pre-show discussion. We are on, what are we on, Omar? Episode 34. Blimey, 34. Not bad. Not bad, Jen.
34
Okay,
straight weeks.
77 I got to do, yeah. It's true.
I would have had
accuracy.
you higher. Loki, like a lot of people roast Lamar, but I went back and like looked at his
bring it back.
stuff this past year, and he wasn't even bad. A lot of people were just riding that train. Like that's what I kind of hate with our community is like as soon as someone gets in their head like this player shit, like it's just instant like roast. Like Lamar, he had a .95 for the season, and like yeah, his hard point was kind of bad, but like his like control was actually pretty good. And his S&D he did pretty well. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people were just jumping on him pretty hard. I feel like they were in like an impossible situation with both him and Mike because either way you could have had them in there. But I mean, there's a reason why Lamar is on a rumored team. You know? Like obviously
That's the point
there's
actually the Ramadan month as well. That wasn't
yeah.
easy.
Uh,
I mean, I don't
I
know.
feel like
but
whenever you get
actually
dropped,
wasn't
it's
easy.
like regardless of how you played, your stock gets smashed.
Yeah. Like
Just
our scene
unfortunate.
is so like we're so like absolutes. Like there's no like everyone thinks you're either good or you're shit. And like
And
and
the
it's so
recency
hard to
bias is
change that.
crazy.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. It's good for accuracy, like, because with the guys that are on the rumored team, like, it's not going to be required to do crazy numbers, you know. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Jesus here at A, but you know what I mean. Which is
Yeah, but
obviously makes
it's a
sense.
71, mate. It's a 71.
Exactly, it's just 71 and it gets you an A. So you see how this
Oof.
works. If you know, anyway, we should dive on. These are good discussions. We can keep having them through the show. I'm going to keep this tweet up, even though we don't have to have the tweets on screen now, Omar. And we'll get to say, yeah, okay, sorry. Can I say, all right, guys, already? Yeah, okay, I'll crack on.
Wait, hold on one sec. Gersh, like, by not playing in the challenger scene, that is the best thing you could have done because, like, players like him, they're not going to get any value increase by playing in the challengers. It would just hurt you.
Interesting. It's a good point, to be fair. Wonder if methods will get us, but okay, now I'm saying, all right, guys, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Time is ticking. Time is ticking. We're 15 minutes into the stream. We've had a good time. It's time to go. All right, gents. We're ready. I'll give us a 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. All right, guys. TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And welcome to episode 34 of the Breaking Point podcast. We're back again. It's a 3-man show. We've got Lionman the entire time. It's beautiful stuff. There is a lot to discuss. Rostermania has been hitting the fan. Last week we talked about some potential rumours. This time we're talking about some pretty legit rumours. One team has already been confirmed as of recording. There's a lot to dive into. We still don't know like what 2 of the organisations are going to be for next year. There are many question marks up in the air. As things go on, it's going to become increasingly clear. We're going to discuss everything today, as usually is the case, with Austin, EasyMac and Neil. And we got Lionman here as well. How are we doing, gents? Austin, you just got back from a bit of a road trip. Not really a road trip, but see, you just made it back in time. But yeah, you had a good couple of days.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the holiday weekend over here.
Beautiful, beautiful. The energy calmed down a little bit from the hype intro, but it's all good. How's it going, Lion?
Good, mate. Good, mate. Just been working. Been living good. Vibing, mate. How are you?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good.
See, I asked you.
Know the vibes.
How's TacticalRab?
Yeah, you did. You did. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Doesn't happen all that often, but we take those when it happens. Beautiful. Okay, well, lots to talk about. Also, thanks to all those watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that good stuff. You can check us out over there. We're also live on Twitch. If you guys aren't aware as of yet, if you've been living under a rock or something, we do these live on Twitch nowadays. It's beautiful stuff. The chat's popping up. You can see it at the bottom of the screen because Omar's killing it as usual. Let's talk right in because yesterday was September the 5th And I was thinking, okay, September the 5th, that's the day that these organizations can begin to sign some players, get them locked into the contracts. And I thought maybe we could get an announcement on the 5th. But, well, turns out we've got one on the 6th. There's been some talk about how long teams should wait. And I'll give the chug in a second. But, yeah, at the end of the day, there's teams fly some players out to do some content or whatever to prepare for the announcements they want to make. LIG didn't really do that. We'll have a talk about them in a second. But how long do you think we're going to have to wait to get some other rosters right? Because there was even a tweet that came up from Scump about an hour ago saying that he was flying to LA on work, whatever that means. Kind of doubt that'd be a content thing, but you never really know for some sort of announcement. So things like that some teams will go down the route of. LIG clearly decided not to. But yeah, thoughts on how many announcements we might get this week, Austin?
The way it moves, I bet you we'll probably get a couple more at like max, probably like 2 or 3. But I wouldn't expect, you're not going to see like all 12 like ready at the end of the week. So yeah, it was nice to get LAG quick, but I wouldn't expect like too much crazy news for the next like week or two. A lot of stuff is going to be slow moving.
Yeah. Usually though, when one team announces, it gets the ball rolling, and like we'll get a couple in the next few days. But don't know who they'll be. I think we'll probably find out about like Paris and Chicago spots pretty soon as well. But everything's up in the air. We don't really know. But I think Crone definitely accelerated the rate in which we'll get these teams, because he's gone rogue. He's let everyone know what's happening. So I don't think it really matters too much. There's no pressure for us to find out. But next few days, probably.
That's a fair point. I see you got some headphones now, Lion, as well. Usually it's the
No,
earbud route, but
there's some old trash headphones.
I was gonna say they look
Dude.
pretty OG.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. I got sent those Astros,
Uh-huh.
obviously by old Steve, and I broke the wire immediately. And we can't buy the wire in New Zealand. I went to
Ah.
order one, didn't come. I asked my mate to order one for me. They sent him a fake one, and so now I'm just stuck with these shit
It's a
headphones.
shambles. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's the old sidetrack.
Thanks,
That's
bro.
unfortunate. We'll figure it out. This time next week, be back in business. But I mean, yeah, precisely. I think we've had a fair comment really on the situation. But as you say, we've got an announcement. We'll talk about LAG first because it hasn't really happened, even though I was going to talk about the other one first, just because Slasher dropped from Los Angeles Thieves a few days ago. That's a pretty big announcement. We saw then that came out today that they released Huke, and then just before that, York Subliners released Asim, so it became relatively clear what was going to be going on there. And yes, Los Angeles Thieves confirmed their roster just a couple of hours ago of Slasher, Gunless, Huke, and Asim. It's a really interesting team. I think that like some people obviously they're already doing their power rankings and stuff. I think we'll have to save that one for a little bit further down the line. But I think a lot of people are looking at some of the other rumored rosters and putting them above this one. I think in terms of ceiling, this has got to be right up there. I think that maybe newer players or newer fans to the scene don't remember quite what it's like when Slasher and Gunless are both going off at the same time. It is a scary sight. If Huke can get back to the form that he had right at the start of this year, and then if Asim can kind of be that enabler for the team and be the entry guy for Huke. I think there's certainly some questions about this team. I'm not sold on that the chemistry is going to be fantastic and that the team is going to play fundamentally very well, but they all are players that very much want to win, and they all have a lot to prove right now. Huke certainly does. Slasher and Gunless certainly do after a difficult couple of seasons. Asim's in a boat where he did pretty well this season, but ends up getting dropped off his team effectively anyway, unless he decided to leave and come to this option and he had the New York option on the table, but I'm not sure that was the case. So, yeah, really interesting team. Also very exciting, right? First of all, because Los Angeles Guerrillas, after 2 woeful seasons, actually look like they're going to contend, or at least give it a go, which is something we've been missing for the league, Austin.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that LAG was in a really prime opportunity to revamp their team and get into a nice like restart going into year 3, and it seems like they did that. They're one of these organizations that's probably isn't afraid to throw some money around, and everyone knows that they have a lot of money, so they went out. Obviously, Asim, Huke, Slasher, you got to get you guys got to buy all these guys out. I think Gunless was a free one, but you still got to pay for it. You still got to be the one that you got to put this team together. So this organization did a hell of a job this offseason, making moves like that and spending and trying to actually be competitive this season, because they've been what 11th and 12th in the first 2 years, and that's just not good enough. So this is like one of those really big glow ups going into year 3.
Yeah. One thing I really like about this team is the versatility. Like, especially having Gunless who can run the AR or an SMG. If it's a 3 SMG meta or a 2 AR meta, like it's perfect. But one thing I want to touch on is how competitive this league is getting. Like LAG and like Paris and stuff in previous years have been clearly that bottom, those bottom few teams. But I feel like every single year we just get better and better. And like, where are the weak teams coming from? So it's getting crazy. I think even more so this year than any other year. It will be like a coin toss per matches. But when the season gets going, I think, we'll probably get a clear understanding of where each team is. But it does look very competitive.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's going to be really exciting because last year you could probably look at LAG and Seattle and probably say that both those rosters are going to have a hard time competing at the top. Whereas all the rumored rosters we're going to discuss today, there's a very much a world in which they're like competing for top 4, if not, higher than that. And obviously some of them will flop and fall off and, have to make moves. That's how it goes. But at least you're coming into the year so far not thinking, okay, that team like, at best top 8, top 6 or something. So it's really interesting. I did want to talk a little bit more about this roster though, because like the chemistry question is interesting. The last time that Slashers teamed with Huke, it didn't exactly go great on I guess on Envy and
Envy?
World War II. And they did, of course, team on Denial way back in the day in Advanced Warfare to pretty good success. They had a number of second places. But last time they teamed, it wasn't great. We know that Slasher and Gunless, if they, well, I don't know. Gunless, it seems like, has very much evolved as and matured as a personality and as an individual to the point where you don't seem to be fearing that his teams are going to implode at any moment. But still, Slasher and Gunless, big names, big personalities. I wouldn't be surprised to see a world in which they start the season quite well, then things go downhill. And if that is the case, you could see chemistry and friction beginning to emerge. But so there's that question. The chemistry question is a bit interesting. And then there's the whole Huke Asim SMG duo. How well can that work? Where can they be ranked in terms of like how good SMG duos are? And whether they need a coach in there like Looney to kind of keep them all together, as he did such a great job with the actual Rise Nation team in World War II, when he was, of course, the IGL technically for that team at the time. So definitely a few things they should be thinking about here. I don't think this is a clear-cut slam dunk top 4 team, Austin, without any there is some risk attached.
Yeah, there's definitely risk. Personally, I think you have 3 like leaders in this team, so you might get like a too many cooks in the kitchen type deal. I think a lot of like their success next season relies on Pierce and Austin, like Slasher and Gunless being on the same page, because I feel like if those 2 guys are butting heads on how they want to play the game, these guys won't reach their potential. But if they're both on the same page, and like even Asim to an extent, because I feel like Asim's going to be leading the sub duo in terms of comms, because Kyler's usually on like the quieter side. So as long as these guys are all on like the same page, they're gonna do really, really well. And I think that's the risk, is that you're gonna have these guys all thinking how to play Call of Duty the right way, like their way, and they're all gonna be connecting on that, which kind of makes me think like they need more of a coach that's gonna be good at settling disputes. Not really an X's and O's coach, right? I think they should be looking whether they already have their coaches from last season, Bevels and Ricky. That whoever they have needs to be really, really good at settling disputes, because as long as they get these guys to play on the same page and get everyone on the same page together, like they're going to be a very, very good team. It reminds me a lot of like this New York team from this year. I think they're going to be really scary. I feel like they're going to be a really good hardpoint team, and they're going to be competitive, which is something we haven't said a lot about LAG in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. To touch on like Gunless's approach, he did last year. He was stayed on Seattle the whole year, but it seems like when his season is a little bit more volatile, like we look at Huntsman, they were really good at the start of the year and then they started to fall off, and that's when he left. Or when we look at Luminosity and Black Ops 4, it was like they look good and then things go wrong and then it goes pear-shaped. Same with the United in 2017. So I really feel like it depends on his situation, where the team is at. If things start to go rocky, we never know what will happen with Gunless per se. But yeah, I'm just excited to see where this team goes. I think you're right, Austin. They just have too many cooks in the kitchen. It was a good way to put it. But for now, yeah, we just have to wait and see how things look because this team can be really talented.
Yeah, one thing I also wanted to touch on was the potential of apathy because I did see, I think I mentioned it today that Slasher had like changed his profile picture on Twitter or whatever to him and apathy on the NB days, and I was just wondering what goes on with apathy because, of course, I think could well argue that if there was anyone from that previous Los Angeles Guerrillas team that's most likely to still get a spot this year, it probably should have been apathy and probably would have been apathy. And I think understandably so, but obviously right now we're not hearing him on some of these rumored teams. I wonder if a substitute spot somewhere, like for example, still on LAG could make sense. Of course, Slasher and Apathy could, they go way back. And I don't know, like Slasher seemed somewhat frustrated that, Slasher seemed pretty frustrated that last year the whole situation went down with JCap and all the coaching things over there. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know what they're going to do with coaches, as you said, Austin, but Looney seems like a great mediator between those two because he knows how they operate and he knows what arguments they have and how to get the best out of them in that way. But also a guy like Abathy could be useful in that sense as well, even if he's not competing, kind of like how Tommy did even on the Dallas Empire, like Tommy Trewen, as in like Tommy, not Zuma, on the Dallas Empire when he was kind of almost being their coach for a time before they got Rambo in, where he was actually quite useful in that role because he understands the players and how they behave. So I think, it'd be interesting to have, if Apathy is there as a sub, like, I think he could do more than just be a substitute player to sit on the bench. I think it'd be good for your substitute player to actually add more value to the team outside of that, even if it's in kind of like a, almost like an assistant coach type role. It could happen, Austin, but I don't know. I'd like to see. I want to see Apathy stay in the league if he still wants to compete.
Yeah, I want to see him stay in the league. I don't really know how much of like a voice he has because I feel like what this team needs is someone with like a voice that would just shut down an argument, just be like, "Nope, this is it. We're doing this. Okay, we're gonna drop this shit. This is how we're gonna do it, right?" And I don't know if he has that voice, but he would definitely be a great COD mind to be like inputting. So that would be a nice substitute call right there because if stuff doesn't go wrong, or if stuff does go wrong, he would also be a very legitimate SMG to throw in. So I do like that call.
Who do you think would be like the very, very best coach if we were just going to take any coach from the entire league to like put these guys in check?
I mean, it's
It's
tough to look past Crowder, but yeah.
it's tough because I don't really know how every coach like operates.
Yeah.
But like in an ideal world, like when players have disagreements and stuff, you either want someone who can like mediate it by like just directing the conversation the right way. So then instead of arguing and getting angry with each other and getting frustrated, which leads to bad play, and then you're not calming as much, and then it just compounds, and then you get like a fractured team. So you need someone that's either going to guide the conversation the right way, which is something like Chris does actually really well with our team, or you need someone with like that iron fist that's just going to be like, we're going to knock this shit off, okay? Like we're going to one of you guys has to agree with the other one, and we're gonna move on from this. So like that's kind of like how Ray coaches, I believe. Like Ray's more of like that leader, like that like directive leader. So I don't know personally. Like maybe I know Ricky Atura is a free agent, Bobble's a free agent. So
Oh
there are
yeah.
options. Yeah. So there are
Revan.
options. Yeah. So
Mm.
yeah,
That would make sense, Revan, because of Asim as well.
the only thing with Revan is like he would just have to have a strong voice for that team. I just hope he wouldn't like he would just have to be that aggressive voice, and I think that would work.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's options, and whether they go with Bevels and Ricky, I'm not sure like if they still have the same coaching staff because I didn't see an announcement of that at all. So um, either way, I feel this organization would be one of those organizations that puts a staff around a team, so they'll be in a good place no matter what.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. And of course, the other side of this LAG thing that I'm incredibly excited about from a storyline perspective is the Los Angeles Thieves rivalry, which is finally going to be a thing. I mean, to be fair, it was kind of a thing this year, but just because both teams were pretty bad and Los Angeles Guerrillas actually beat them every single time they played. I think they had like a 3-0 record against them, Guerrillas, against Thieves this year, which is pretty incredible because Thieves, on the whole, were the better team, but just couldn't beat them at majors and important matches and stuff like this. So I even remember like in the first year when Slasher was on or like OGLA or whatever it was, and like Aches was on LAG, and they did like a hype video between them, and then like Aches wasn't even there on LAG by the time they actually played each other. So it was just an absolute disaster. But this time, we've got the rumor that comes out from Los Angeles Thieves. This is kind of expected. I mean, obviously, Octane, Kenny, Drazah, that was very well expected. The Envoy thing, I'll actually bring this up so you can chuck it on screen, Omar, if you would like to do so. Here it is. So yeah, this is the tweet that comes out from Crone. Octane likely running it back with LA Thieves. Envoy set to complete the roster. Pretty, I mean, it's very nice. I think this is another team I'm really excited for. And as I was kind of alluding to, Slasher versus Octane, the kind of old AR duo on, and Kenny as well, right? The kind of previous duo of 100 Thieves when they were particularly good back in the Black Ops 4 days. They're now going to be playing against each other, both on Los Angeles teams. So the storylines write themselves. The same is true for Huke because he's just been on LA Thieves. I'm sure he wants to prove that like they it's kind of understandable that they benched him twice effectively or whatever the case may be. Like both all the changes they made make sense, but still in his mind he wants to say, look, I'm here, like, you've made a mistake letting me go. I should have been the SMG on this team instead of Drazah or Envoy or whatever. So yeah, I guess I'll throw it to you, Austin, because there's a lot to say on that rivalry, but also this team of four is very spicy indeed.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good like gun skill team, but I don't know like hopefully one of them steps up to be like the person that helps be the IGL, be the in-game leader because 2 years ago I didn't really put too much stock into like an IGL. I thought you can kind of do that outside of the game, but after seeing like our kind of like transformation from last year to like this year, I'm starting to believe you kind of need someone that's like in a close game, be able to say like, look, this is what we're doing, okay, then like make that split second decision, and that is the only thing where I'm not sure who's gonna step up on the plate on this one, right? So it could be Kenny, it could be Drazah, it could be Envoy, but like that's gonna be something that's gonna have to be developed this season, like if they, if this is the four and this is how they go. But on paper, they're a really really solid team. I'm glad that Kenny will probably be the AR on that team. I feel like he has to stick on an AR, even though he was one of the best SMGs for a single title in World War II. I feel like allowing him to be on the best weapon and just go play for kills pretty much is going to be really important for him. Another thing is how Kenny and Octane will work together because sometimes when you have like one really strong AR, the other AR kind of struggles. We kind of saw that in Florida this season with Awakening and Skies. So I just hope one of these guys steps into like the role of like blocking spawns, playing correct, playing really smart. Even though your stats are going to take a hit, like team stats are better than personal stats, right? You want to be a winner, not a loser with good stats. So, that's going to be something they're going to have to discuss and figure out. And I still feel like they're going to be a really good team. So I have them probably in the top four going into the next season already, if that's a four stack there.
Yeah. I feel like the IGL role kind of got a little bit pushed to the side last year, mainly because of your team. Like FaZe, they were the most talented team by far in Modern Warfare, and they kind of got away with a lot of things because of their skill. But it's like this year they completely switched it up. They kind of evolved into this all-round team with like the most skill, great coaches, and like good leadership as well. And that's the biggest problem I see with LA Thieves right now is, yeah, who's going to be that guy? Who's going to be the guy to stand up and like make the shot calls? We don't really know. And do you guys think that could be Kenny? Because we haven't really seen that from him or Octane. Like, what do you guys suggest is the best option for them IGL wise?
Envoy could well do that. I
Oh, that's a
mean,
good shout, actually.
I think I don't know. It's interesting. I don't theoretically. I always think it makes more sense to have one of your ARs be kind of like the shot caller. But I know
Got
that
more
Envoy
time.
has done a good job of that in the past. I think it can happen again. You need obviously more than one voice. I think you will get that with this team. The in theory, it's crazy good. I just am really interested to see in a similar way to LAG, and that these are players that just haven't had the success that they kind of, and not necessarily like they deserved, but that they could have had the last few seasons, like based on the talent that they have. But the teams they've been on just haven't been good enough. Especially for Octane, right? Like, that's what I'm this is the storyline I'm really interested in because he's back here with Kenny. Of course, he had great success in kind of the pre-CDL era, but ever since Seattle Surge, it's been a nightmare. So it's like, can he come back here, drop good numbers, but also be part of a winning team? It's not like I don't know if it's like a mindset shift thing, but it might be quite interesting, like to actually be on a team that can contend and have to, have to deal with what comes with that. I'm happy that Drazah stays. I think that's great. I think that he can do whatever. Who knows, right? If it is a 3 SMG game, then Kenny will have to be on that SMG. So things already could be kind of interesting, but I think that that can work fine. But that's kind of why I'm quite happy with this team. But Drazah and Envoy is another SMG duo, kind of like Asim and Huke, where I'm like, there's an awful lot of talent there, but it's just a kind of interesting mesh of players, right? But in the same way that Asim is very, I think, versatile and will do what is required to make that work, I think Drazah will do very much a similar thing. And I hope Envoy, like, I don't know, I just want to see him be like I guess he needs to be kind of the slaying SMG on this team. And I think if he can achieve that, then this team could be phenomenal. But I think a fair bit of this actually comes down to how Envoy slots into that role, because I think you kind of know what you're going to get from Drazah, Kenny, and Octane in theory. But Envoy did well this season to not great results, right? So it's another one of those questions as how they can perform. I don't know if you think that makes any sense, Austin.
Yeah. Well, first off, like I think they're going to be in a good spot going into the game because a lot of the times the game is very slow at the beginning, and then as the year goes along, it starts speeding up, and that's where you start seeing the extra SMGs. So I think that is honestly a really big plus for them because it gives them time to develop their system and their synergy with their ARs and work that out. I think what they're probably going to do is you're going to stick Drazah into that entry role, like the aggressive SMG, stick Envoy in the passive, more like lurk heavy, so it allows him to like speak more, not rely, not be in so many gunfights as much. So I do feel like you're probably gonna have Envoy be the IGL, be one of those guys, and whoever does take up that mantle, this has to be consistent and not shut down at any point. So I feel like Envoy is probably gonna be the best one to step into that role, right? So one thing that this team will have to do is learn some, like, not learn fundamentals, but play fundamentally and have a system, because one thing with if you don't know who your IGL is going into the season, I for like this year, like 4v4 and not having consistent spawns, you get punished really hard for making mistakes, for over challenging, right? So they're gonna have to have somebody teach them, like show them what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, and keep reminding them that this, when we make this mistake, this happens, right? And then have the in-game leader really nail down what we should be doing and when. So that will be the only hiccup. I think maybe in the early game, they might dip a little bit, but then I feel like as the year goes along, they're gonna get really good. So definitely both LA teams came out of this Rostermania looking pretty good. I would say this is probably the best that both of those teams have looked in CDL, like the CDL era.
Yeah. Who do you think will be on that main AR? Would you rather have Kenny or Octane?
Octane. Yeah, again, like with the AR roles, you're not really gonna have a flex in the beginning of the game. I don't think you're gonna have 2 AR roles, so one of them is gonna have to take a hit, right? One of them is gonna take a hit, play that passive role that's gonna be blocking spawns, because I don't think we're gonna get squad spawns again, right? Which is why, like, in Modern Warfare you really didn't need an IGL, because squad spawns pretty much eliminated the damage that people can do when you make mistakes. So you didn't have to think as much. It was just gunfight. And as long as your team has the preferred side, then you're good. You don't have to think as much. You don't have to communicate. Nowadays, you have to communicate, or else you're going to get punished. You're going to get flipped. And next thing you know, you're going to be losing hard points 250 to 50 because you're just getting chained, right? So a lot of people give Cap shit, right, about his coaching style, how he's done it. As Lamar just put in the chat, like, people think like JCap was over here, master manipulator, calling every shot, and obviously people don't know the whole picture all the time. So he was one of the best IGLs in CDL history, and whoever he does take under his wing, like, because I feel like he's a really good exit and O's coach, and sometimes he's not a really good motivator, but whoever he takes under his wing to like help them be the IGL of the team is going to be good. And like, people that are saying like Cap isn't the right coach or Cap is a bad coach, like, first off, no one even knows what he's doing inside of the game, and you're acting like he's the GM of the team. So yeah, it's just it's just two different sides, right? So, and he's never going to come out and just say all this. So it's kind of like he's gotten a bad rap after one season when I've really never seen any other coach in the entire CDL ever get as much shit as he's gotten over 1 year, which is kind of insane. But yeah, so hopefully people realize and just get to see a better picture of him this season, because I actually think he's a really, really good coach that brings a lot to the team.
Yeah. I was gonna say Teep World War II, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
up
That's
there.
actually another
Yeah,
good shout, to be fair.
that's up
He
there.
got
Yeah.
smoked. Goodness.
Sender this year as well for a time.
I don't
But,
think he got that much hate though. I think the team just they didn't
He might have had
perform
more.
World War II bad. Like remember they came from IW champs, then they
God.
were the best team coming into World War II, and then just everything hit the fan. Whereas this year I feel like the expectations weren't that crazy for OpTic. They weren't like these guys are gonna be the best team in the game easily. So he got
Tough
away with it a
times.
little bit, but he did get smoked for sure, and people were calling for him to be replaced and calling for analysts and all that. So
Agreed, it's
he-
tough.
Yeah.
The last thing I kind of wanted to say on this LA Thieves is, I mean, we kind of touched on Envoy, but I think it's a really interesting, it's a really nice storyline for Envoy. It doesn't seem like there's any bad blood between him and the OpTic guys, but at the end of the day, and I was talking about this today as well, that who knows, even if OpTic had won champs, Envoy might not be there, because if there's mergers happens and Shotzzy and Scump were going to be the duo anyway, then like, you know, doesn't matter how, yeah, Envoy could have dropped to 1.5 at champs, and he probably doesn't find himself on OpTic next year if that was what's going to
You
happen
reckon?
anyway. I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but like at the end of the day, if that was going to happen anyway, and it was an OpTic shot, and it was a Scump Shotzzy thing, maybe. I'm just saying, but regardless, he's going to go on to Thieves, who are kind of like, I mean,
OpTic
that's a
B.
great rivalry already, right? Like OpTic versus LA Thieves, 100 Thieves, however it is, and he's gonna want to show that that you know they've made some sort of mistake. It's always that. It's only natural. So that's certainly exciting. But I think he is gonna have to reach kind of Black Ops 4 Envoy levels if this team is gonna win a championship. Because I mean, look, the team is nasty on paper, but there's a lot of teams that are nasty on paper, Austin.
Yeah, I think it's more on like the ARs. I feel like Envoy's going to get his. I feel like as long as those ARs work together and find a system that works that benefits both of them, they're going to be a good spot. Because it just sucks that one of them's probably going to have to take a back seat to the other, and as long as that person is okay with it and decides getting victories is better than me putting up a 1.3 consistently, then that's going to be great for this team. They're going to figure it out. They're going to click and. That's what's key is a lot of players get into their head about their own stats and forget at the end of the day it's about winning fucking series. It's not about putting up a 1.3, right? So as long as these guys go into the season remembering that if they play together, like they're gonna be a contender consistently throughout the season. But to do that, you have to put egos aside. You have to remember what it is to play Call of Duty, like what you have to do, and playing together as a team, right? It's just playing together as a team, and you're going to put down anyone in front of you. So, yeah, this team will have a lot of talent. It's just about making it, making it click together, right? So,
Yeah.
hopefully they're able to do that.
It'll be weird seeing one of those two players, Octane or Kenny, drop their stats a little bit. I can't really imagine that, to be honest, but we'll have to see because definitely one of them has to make that switch.
And the
But
hardest
I
part
don't-
is like when you do drop your stats, the fans coming at you and like how you react to that, right? And like how you take that pressure, because
yeah, and,
if
and I'm coming at them, unfortunately.
the Reaper.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper of Rostermania live at himself.
Huh.
But yeah, agreed. I mean, another team that I mean, this is a team I'm really excited to discuss is the Royal Ravens, because finally, well, to be fair, first and second year, both times, it seems like someone had their head screwed on. But now I'm really excited about the potential of this. So the rumor has it right now, you've got Zero, you've got Afro, of course, is still going to be there. They're going to finally get Zero back and out to the States. They're going to get Nasty out to the States, and they're going to throw Gizmo in as well as kind of the flex, I imagine. Even though the great thing about this team is that there is so much flexibility. It's just fantastic. I mean, Afro and Nasty, I'm really hoping that Afro and Nasty can be the SMG duo that I was hoping Dylan and Alex would be for London. Because Dylan and Alex on paper should have been a really good SMG duo going into this year. Like, I mean, obviously Dylan wasn't great in Modern Warfare, but if you look at World War II Alex and you look at Black Ops 4 Dylan and you put them on a title that should fit both of them, even though, you know, it's obviously the Dylan question is sort of a fair bit of talk on that lately. Anyway, for whatever reason, that SMG duo was pretty woeful and never really worked out. This time you've got Afro, who seems to be an absolute wizard. We see him for the last couple of months of the season, putting up. I think even Radlev and Stats was doing some number crunching on like statistically best player in the game based on all sorts of statistical algorithms and stuff. And Afro was coming out number one, if not like right up at the top of there, based on his stats for the last couple of months in terms of engagements and first blood, search and destroy performances, KD, all this stuff. Like of course, the entire season it would have been simp, but probably it would have been simp, but still like that's kind of crazy. And then you've got Nasty, who's been in a very similar category of player for the last several years, or for the last couple of years at the very least. The Hydras, the Preds, the Afros of the world. Nasty's been up there. Finally, they get him out to the States. Zero's going to have a lot of pressure on him to get back to kind of in the same way that Octane does, I think, kind of be like, okay, can you be a top tier AR once again and win championships like you did back in 2017? And then I've got Gizmo, who's another kind of interesting wildcard. I can't say I know too much about Gizmo, but I know he's a pretty effective AR slayer, flex player, whatever is required. So I'm really excited about the versatility of this team. I'm also really excited the fact that they're going down this European amateur route, which hopefully will prove to a lot of organizations out there there's an awful lot of untapped potential in regions outside of just North American challengers. And also these guys have experience playing together before, like Afro and Zero played in challengers earlier this year when they were back in the UK. Nasty and Gizmo did the same thing to finish out the challenger season. So I think pressure on Zero to come back and be a force and also to lead this team. But if he can get these guys going, there is honestly a very nice amount of talent on this team, and I'm hoping they can mix things up. I think they might start slow, but come like stage 3, stage 4, if it works the same way, I'm licking my lips, to be honest, Austin.
Yeah, I actually really like the Gizmo pickup. I've thought the Giz a lot. I think he was on my what is it, scouting grounds? I think he was on my scouting grounds team for a little bit. But yeah, he was one of the first guys to use like the XM4 like at the beginning of the game. He was like one of the only guys using it when the Krieg was really good. So I've watched him a lot. I think he's a really good flex. I do hope they pick up Harry Harry or Vortex on the for their subs, probably both, honestly, because I do think this team is very versatile where they can end up at, because Trey can run a sub, he can run an AR, right? I kind of like him as that main AR IGL on this team. He's gonna be like a really good like COD filer to these guys. But on the flex, you could have Gizmo. I think Gizmo will be really good. I think Nasty could be a really good flex. Give him like that Kenny-esque role where just put him in the best weapon, give him reins to do whatever he wants. I think Nasty's going to be a top 10 player. I'll say top 10 player this next year. He's disgusting. I've seen like crazy stuff from him. The only way he doesn't do top 10 is like where he has some growing pains within the pro level and a team environment. But I feel like they're going to be pretty good. So if there are any hiccups in the road, I do hope they pick up those 2 SMGs just in case they can try to slot them in. But yeah, this is definitely some of the most elite EU talent we're going to get coming out of the challengers, like young elite talent. So a lot of these guys have been, on the come up for a while. So I definitely like the route they went, go on the young side. And I do hope they do build up an academy team to bring over some more of that European talent and build out these players.
London's another team that is clearly improved, like during this off season. I think we were pretty surprised that Zero is staying on London, especially after the year that he just had, missing the entirety of Cold War. And Nasty as well, who's a sub for the majority of the year, wasn't he? Or was that last year?
Modern Warfare.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I think this team is a lot better than years past for London. But I'll just have to see how Zero comes back into the league, because obviously missing the entire year, it's pretty rough. He played challenges though, right?
Yeah, hot tub meta.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this team dynamic wise, it looks like it can be really, really good. I just wonder, who are they keeping the same coaching staff?
They let go of Shane, and they haven't said anything about
Oh
Dom.
yeah, you're right. They
I think
didn't.
Dominate's still there, but Shane's out of there. So making
They have
moves,
to
man.
pick
All
up.
these teams.
D-Real has to be picked up by them. I think
Yeah.
you're throwing if you don't at least look at him, and I think you're throwing if you don't pick up a good analyst. There's a lot. That's why there's so many good like EU coaches and analysts right now, and I think with a young staff, I think the most important thing, or with a young player, like a lot of young players, I think the most important thing is how you mentor them and how you teach them like from their mistakes, right? I think you can't just let them go free ball, like just free, like crazy, just do whatever you want. I feel like as long as you mentor them and correctly teach them and show them, their mistakes, not only like their mistakes, but like how to improve on that. They're gonna learn rapidly and get a lot better and like go through those growing pains. So yeah, I definitely think they should look at more people. I do like so OD said Dom is staying. I like Dom personally as a coach. I really do. So hopefully they have a good squad over there and a good staff.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, look, you got guys like DeReal, you got guys like Round 11 Stats, you got Cam Allen, right? Like, there's so much talent. I know you put together a massive list of it, Austin as well. Like, just I guess challenger, not in the pro league, coaches and analyst staff. So maybe someone to Odie to look at who's in the chat right now, who loves a good Breaking Ball podcast. So you certainly appreciate that. But yeah, so that's the thing. I'm really excited for this London team finally, and I'm very excited at what you had to say there, Austin. The fact that you think Larcy could be a top 10 player, because if that's true, and then Afro's his SMG duo, I mean, I don't know, man. We've got some questions on our hands, but I do kind of agree that for Zero, this is like, because I mean, certainly from what I watched of challenges, like he didn't do much in challenges, but you could look at the same for maybe a guy like Accuracy if he went down there, and Methods in a very similar boat, right? Went down to challenges and like didn't really do all that much, but still could be a very much a pro level caliber player, and has done it before and knows how to do it. So that's why I'm excited for this team. So hopefully we can have a nice team to support over here in the UK without having to support the Toronto guys, because that was fun and it seems like they're sticking together. We'll talk about that in a bit. Another team that I would put in a kind of a similar boat here as to what London are trying to do is what Seattle Surge are up to, because they've kind of got a similar boat where they're like, all right, let's bring back Zero, let's bring back Accuracy into this team, and let's let him lead as the main AR these three relatively new players to the scene. I mean, two of them certainly are. Mac has been around a couple of years, but the rumor has it right now, I can actually chuck it up if you want to bring it on screen, Emma. But we got Pred, we've got Mac, and we've got Sib. Now, this is another really interesting team if it does go through, because I mean, again, there's a lot of pressure on Accuracy to lead these guys. There's also many questions about like chemistry, can it work? Like, it's a really interesting combination of players, even though I believe Sib and Mac are very good friends, so that might make a fair bit of sense. And then you got Pred thrown in there, this young Australian talent who's been, as we said, put in a very similar category as the likes of Afro, Hydra, and Nasty as well the last couple of years. So I'm expecting him to be really, really exciting to watch at the very least. And then you've got to figure out how the rest of the team works. So it's like this team could, it just seems like a team that either clicks and it's absolutely way above expectations, or things maybe don't quite go to plan, Austin. It's a tough one to predict how it's going to go, I think.
Yeah. First off, like I do respect Seattle's change of approach that they've had. So in the past 2 years, you see them more going after like big names. This year they're going towards the let's develop some talent, right? So Mac and Sib were actually like best friends, and I think it was Modern Warfare. They were really really close. So I like that duo returning. That probably means that Mac's gonna be on a sub. I would guess. I would guess that's
Yeah,
probably where
that's
he's
what
gonna
the
end up
article
on.
said.
Yeah. So I actually love the Lamar pickup here. I think that's an extremely undervalued one where, Lamar is obviously a great leader. He's going to be, put into a role where he gets to mentor these guys and really coach them and be that like player coach basically. Um, he's going to, be guiding the troops and just letting them go wild. So, one thing that this team's really going to have to like focus on is being able to motivate these guys, right? So like I've been around Sib for a while now. He was at the champs with us. He was in like the back room with all the coaches and stuff. A lot of people have a misconception of him because like his on air personality, I like to call it. So it's on air, so like the flank and on stream and stuff is completely different to him outside of the game, and obviously you don't get to see that as much because he's really boisterous when he's on stream and stuff. But when he's off stream, he's really smart. A lot of people don't know that. He's really smart. He's really talented. He's really self-aware. He knows what he needs to work on and how to get there. And I think he like raw talent wise, disgusting talent. But the thing is with like him and Mac is getting them in the right headspace, getting them motivated, and then they're going to be like unstoppable, right? So I don't want them to have like one loss and then like get down on themselves. Like they need to just remember to they are disgusting and they just have to keep going, keep learning. So that's why I like Lamar being there because he's gonna hype these guys up. He's gonna make these guys not only get better X's and O's wise, but he's gonna get their headspace right, which is gonna be the most important thing for them. On the Pred part, I haven't like watched Pred a ton. He's the one. He's like the X factor of this team because he's probably gonna be the entry SNG, right? So, um, hopefully he is. He did amazing stuff over in APOC. So I hope he is given some time to develop, get accustomed to playing at probably a faster pace over here with a lot of talent. So this roster will probably have a lot of bumps in the road, but I just hope they with Sam there and with Lamar there, they're just gonna have to grind and learn and keep that that underdog. I feel like they should have that underdog mentality going throughout the year.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Pred. It's the first like Australian player in the league in the last 2 years, and recently we haven't had that much success when players come to NA from our region. So I'm really hoping he can bring that. But also, years gone past, the last 2 years, he's been easily the most dominant player in our region, winning all but like 3 or 4 tournaments with Renegades. So I mean, it's positive, but it's a very different league when you come into the CDL. So it should be interesting. But I like actually he's almost become like that COD father, like a Clayster type player who's going to put up their numbers, not be the most have the most incredible stats, but is going to be able to like coach these young guys and like bring them into the league and like know exactly how to play and push them in the right directions. So I'm excited for that as well. But Mac back on the SMG should be pretty good because we saw during this year, a lot of the year, he played on the AR, especially when Hydra came in, and he did a good job on the SMG before that, when Diamond Con was on the AR. And then last year as well, especially on obviously Subliners during Modern Warfare, he was great as well on the SMG. So it should be interesting to see him back on that role. But what are your hopes for this team? Where do you think they'll finish throughout the year? We'll just give it a quick prediction.
That's a good question, Lion. I mean, the thing is, it's tough to predict this squad to be too high on this team because from my perspective, it seems like one of those rosters that by the end of the year, they'll have found like a couple of they'll have decided what direction they want to move in, whether that's with accuracy plus one or two of these guys and make some sort of move elsewhere. Like, I can't see this being the same squad of four going into 2023, for example, which makes me think that they'll either have a not the greatest regular season, or they'll make some sort of move in the middle of the season and get way better, or they'll end up finishing like top 8 or something. I think they're very much a surprise upset potential team, but I think there's a lot of work for them to actually be competing for championships, which might mean a very bumpy road the first few months. And then they figure things out, but that probably means that they won't be sitting prettiest in the standings. That at least would be my take, Austin.
I think they're going to be kind of like Florida this season, right? Where I have a feeling they're going to be really chow heavy. Like Lamar's going to have a tough task of like reining all these guys in and playing like the way he likes to play Call of Duty. So I think they might like struggle against some of the top teams, but I definitely feel like their underdog like upset potential is pretty high. So I feel like they could be in like the 6 to 8 range. Like 6 to 9 range. I think so. They I just hope they don't get discouraged if they start slow. I feel like they're going to be a team where kind of like Minnesota this year, where they had like some bumps at the beginning and they got better at the end of the year. So, a lot of people forget that the season's very long. It's not just the first 3 months. So they give this team time to develop and get some cohesion, and they'll get better.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it's pretty risky team. Like out of all the teams so far that we've seen, like announced, I think, well not announced, but leaked by Crone. I think there's it's a pretty risky team, but we'll have to just see if accuracy can rein them in. They should be pretty good, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's I do want to commend Seattle for changing their approach here, right? Because it's been relatively clear that the idea of paying 300k a year for big name players that are past it is probably not the best business decision, or if you're trying to actually win championships as well. But this actually could be a good idea, right? So the next team on the list, and this is actually a massive one, is the Subliners, because a really interesting rumor that came out, I'm pretty sure the first person to mention this was on Scripted CoD. He put out on Twitter. And then I was like, yeah, is this legit? And then it turns out it's legit, or at least as far as Crone knows. So right now, Crimsix reunion with Clayster makes sense. It kind of said last week I wasn't sure it was going to happen. Looks like it might well happen. With Hydra and Neptune on the SMG. So of course, Asim has gone to Los Angeles Guerrillas, confirmed today. And Neptune leaving Florida, at least if this goes ahead. Which does make me wonder. This team is really interesting. It's kind of like the risk factor is there in terms of the roles. This is why like the teams that I like, if I was to be building a team going into the season, I like the ones that actually don't really have too much risk in terms of roles, that you're pretty confident can run anything that gets thrown their way, which is kind of like why I like the London team, and I'm pretty happy with the LAG team, and maybe the Los Angeles Thieves is a bit of a question mark because you never really know if it's going to be 3 SMGs, especially once the season keeps progressing. This is one of those squads that with Clay and Crim on the ARs, I love that, but it's like, if it is 3 SMGs, I don't know, can Crim run an SMG at a high level? Maybe he can, but it's not necessarily a guarantee anymore. And whether this idea works with Crim and Clay both doing the leadership stuff in 4v4 as opposed to 5v5, like they were on the Dallas Empire before, and they tried to get in the middle of this season before New York actually got quite good, is still up in the air. The Hydra Neptune SMG duo is very exciting because that is on paper absolutely terrifying, and I'm sure that Crimsix and Clayster are gonna get the best out of these guys. This is like in terms of SMG duo, like talent, firepower type combo. This is right up there because I look at the other ones. I'm looking at, for example, Huke and Asim. I'm looking at Drazah and Envoy. I'm seeing a lot of talent, but I'm not sure it's gonna translate into results, at least in terms of the kill department and the slaying columns. Whereas this one, like, yeah, no, I can see it certainly happening. Crim and Clay know what they're doing. So this is a really exciting squad. It's also a very interesting one. The implications for Florida we can discuss in a second. But like this team could be really, really terrifying. But I think maybe, I don't know, people are talking about it, but maybe not as much as they could be, Austin. I'm not sure.
The only thing I'm really worried about this team is like their SMGs communicating. Because like Neptune's known to be like very quiet, and obviously like Hydra's gotten a lot better with the English. So, but that's the only thing I'm really worried about. I think all 4 players have like there's a little bit of risk. Like you have a little bit of risk with, the AR duo doesn't have the most amount of firepower, but they have what they lack in firepower. They come back with leadership. So the system they should have is pretty good. So, obviously, Crim on the flex, I always thought that was his best role that he had. He kind of got thrown into like the main AR role in like Black Ops 4. So I do think like in the past he was always like at his best in the flex. So maybe we could see a resurgence of him. But overall, as long as Clay and Crim, they kind of like mentor these two and get them on the same page, then they should be a really scary team. But like talent wise, definitely one of the best SMG duos. It's just communication is a little bit of a red flag, but I do think they can improve on that going into the season.
Yeah, a lot of people are trying to say that Crim and Clay are going to bash heads, which has never happened really in the past. But when we say that, they also haven't really had a tough time before. They've always been like top 3. Their average placing together is like, what, 1.82. So I wonder if things start to go pear-shaped, what does it look like for those two together? But then we also talk about how ARs, there's always like one AR that doesn't drop high numbers, one AR that should be dropping crazy numbers. Is it possible that we have just 2 ARs dropping medium numbers? And will that work?
I can see it, to be fair. Like, I think both Clay and Crim they're gonna play in such a way to facilitate the success of their SMGs, whatever that incorporates. But also, if they realize that, because back in Modern Warfare, for example, if you post up on a heady with an AR, it's a pretty successful way to run that for your team in a 5v5 here at least. Like the game does work in different ways. Like in World War II, the meta was put your AR in the hill and just have him sit in the hill and soak up all the time while taking the fight to range and have your SMGs pull out the cuts. Whereas that's not always the case. So that's one of the things I think Crim and Clay are best at, and why I'm really excited for how this team at least starts the season, because Clay is always ahead of the meta, and Crimsix's teams usually start quite well as well. And I think they'll be very quick to adapt and figure out how the game should be played at a good level. So that's why. So I think what you're saying like could well be the case, but I think at the start of the year this team is going to be a force. Hopefully, we'll continue that way, because we saw it with Clay and Hydra when it was a surprise to me that when Clay and Hydra initially teamed up on New York, they were really good for like the first bit they teamed, and then it fell off. And Clay was fantastic at the start of the season and then fell off a bit. So it's like, I hope that doesn't happen again with this squad. And maybe Crimsix can add that bit of stability to Clayster, and Clayster to Crimsix the other way around that they need. Clearly, they want to team together again, which makes plenty of sense. Any thoughts, Austin?
Yeah, I just think it makes a lot of sense. This roster, with the AR duo leaking back up, they're definitely going to be a force. And I do think you're probably going to need one of these guys to step up, one of the ARs to step up and do well. I don't think you can have two guys doing okay numbers on the back end, because if this team's going to be really really good in hardpoint, so maybe they have to step up in either S&D or the third game mode, whatever that is. Because we did see the other two players in Hydra and Neptune, they were really, really good in hardpoint, but kind of like in the middle for the other two modes. So that's going to be, the S&D in the third mode is going to be where it's going to be where we have to see Crim and Clay step up and do really well, because their SMGs are probably going to take over in hardpoint. They just have to be the rocks for the other two modes.
Yeah, I feel like if this SMG duo doesn't communicate very well, that Clay and Crim will be able to push them in the right direction to be able to comm the way they should be. I don't think they'll get away with those two just not comming, and if they don't, I think that those two will know whether to change that roster or not. So
Yeah,
I don't think that should be an issue for long if that is the case.
That's the only red flag. It's just those two, and if they can communicate well, it's going to be fruitful. But as you said, Clay and Crim know they've been around this game for 10 years. They know, so they'll figure it out. They'll definitely figure it out.
Yeah,
they have plenty of combined experience.
Like every year we look at Clay and think his team isn't going to be that good, and then he'll come out and then suddenly lead his team to like top 3. Especially last year, like I had pretty low hopes for that New York roster, and they came out top 3 for majority of the year. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, made a final
as well. Yeah,
I
agree.
agree.
Should have won that, to be fair, but FaZe too good.
FaZe too good, unfortunately. Maybe this year FaZe not well. Probably FaZe still too good, but like maybe FaZe only just too good, like a little bit, maybe slightly better. I could do slightly better. I don't want, but all these teams are exciting. One that is, I would say, not particularly exciting, and the last kind of rumor to discuss, even though we don't have a thing to put up on screen, is the Florida. Like, I don't really know what's going on right now with the Mutineers, because Neptune seemingly been sold off to New York Subliners, which means, all right, okay, you've done well there, Florida. You've managed to make some cash. It's time to bring in the big guns and, like, I don't know, like make a move or do something. Of course, look, they've brought Yeez in on their sub bench, which I guess if there is a time to bring him into the lineup, it's now. But the rest of the rumored team is so confusing to me, because Atua has been kicked as their coach, it seems. You've then got Skies and Awakening still over there, even though I thought that Awakening would find himself onto another team personally. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Havoc's still chilling. And then you've got even rumours about Dav Paddy being brought in, even though he's another AR. So, like, what are we doing there? And then there's even guys like Vivid. I think you can see a lot of discussion on that, right? Because Vivid, we didn't really talk about it when we discussed LAG earlier, but the Vivid to that team would have made a fair bit of sense. Maybe they didn't want him back on the organisation or whatever, but it would be mind-blowing to see a guy like Vivid not get a spot. This seems like a very sensible team for him to join, but I'm just a bit confused what the Mutineers are up to be honest, because I thought that if you are going to sell Neptune, then you've got to have a backup plan to at least try and be competitive, because you can't put together 3 out of 4 of this roster and expect them to be top 4 with all the other teams massively upgrading as they are seeming to do. So that's why I'm a little bit. This is the one I'm a bit disappointed about, because I was hoping these guys would also try and make something happen. And also seem like a contender, but right now it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But things, of course, could all change.
Yeah, honestly, like we talked about it last week, I think it was, where Florida had a chance to make a splash last season, get Huke, right? They
Mm.
either the money didn't want to be spent or something went wrong there, right? And then LA Thieves outbid them, right? And then this season, they had a chance to sign some premier free agents, maybe buy out some people. It's not looking like that's happening. If anything, they're doing the reverse, and they sold one of their best players, right? So, um, my question is like, are we getting one of those like, let's try to develop talent and spend like less money and try to go that way? Um, it's really hard to tell because Havoc and Yeez, it doesn't. We obviously haven't seen much out of Yeez. You have the Challenger stuff, but that doesn't sound like a top tier SMG duo that's going to be competing with, you know, Kleenex and Bance, Neptune and Hydra, Abizi and Simp. It's Scump and Shotzzy. Like it's a tough battle right there, right? And Skies has been really, really consistent, right? He's probably the one guy you definitely want to keep on the team. Wake had a really lackluster second half of the season. I think Wake's got a lot of potential. He's a great shot, great player, but he's a little bit quiet. And I felt like when we went to LAN, there was a little bit at the end where he was just kind of underperforming. And whether that was LAN or life priorities were not 100% on gaming. Like who knows? But he obviously had a dip at the end of the season, and I just don't know where this puts Florida. I feel like this is like the one team where we could say they 100% got worse, right? Like every team I feel like we've talked about so far, it's like they've gotten better, they've gotten better, they've gotten better on paper, right? And then this team, it's like, where is the where objectively where did you want your roster to be going into the next season? Because if this is your roster, then I guess you did what you wanted to do, but um, where was the roster that you wanted to make, and what happened, what went wrong, right? And so uh it's interesting. It's just interesting that we haven't seen them linked to any tier 1 SMGs. When you think if you have Skies, Wake, even Dab Patty, their weakness would be the SMGs, and we really haven't seen any rumors, heard anything with them linked to any of the tier 1 SMGs. And then you got Wake tweeting out SMG Wake, you got Wake tweeting out I
Yeah.
hate Rostermania, and then you got the Dab Patty rumors. So when you already have Skies there, so it's really weird, right? It's really weird. Obviously, we don't know everything going on the back end. It could be, rooms on fire. Everything's all right though. So like we you don't know. So it's hard to be overly critical. But when you see Neptune getting sold and you're not really buying anyone in return, you see they released Ricky Atura for who? There's a lot more questions than answers that you get out of this roster, right? And as a team that was top 8 and really inconsistent last season, this seems like a step down, especially when the other 4 that didn't make playoffs last season all seemed like they took a step up. We obviously haven't heard much about Paris, but the other, like London, Seattle is even, I think, is better than this team. And what was it? LEG. I think all 3 of them stepped
Course.
up. So I think you're in a danger zone for this Florida team. I think you're in a legitimate danger zone to where like you are now probably in the bottom, third, and you're either gonna have to develop, like Yeez is either gonna have to develop and be a really good SMG, which again we haven't seen a lot of him yet, so you don't know, or their ARs are just gonna have to go God mode, right? So interesting to say the best, I guess. Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying Vivid to this team to be that second SMG, but to me that kind of doesn't really make sense with Havoc there as well because they're both entry subs. One of them would need to take a step back and be more like methodical. And with the ARs, it's like whenever Skies is going off, Wake can't seem to get things going, and vice versa. But we are returning to the Modern Warfare engine, and that's the two. Like Wake had an amazing end to Modern Warfare, and so all Skies just had a great season overall. So we could see like a really, really strong AR duo. But when we touched on Florida, Skies mentioned that this team's comms, all of Cold War, was just completely chalked. and that's probably like the reason for their severe inconsistency. And so I'm wondering, like, what is their play there? Where do they go with comms? Do they bring in a coach that can get them to communicate more? And will Skies and Wake be able to work together consistently as opposed to have one of them going off and one of them dropping bad numbers? So as an SMG, I think they need to get someone who is more like that Envoy, that Huke type player that can roam around the map and get easy kills. But they had that somewhat with Neptune last year, so it's a bit unfortunate they lost that up and coming SMG talent. But yeah, there's just a lot of questions with this team, and I feel like there have been for the last year or so with Florida.
Low
I think
key,
you're bang on, really. Go on, Asim.
low key, a really nice sub duo that would have been here. I said this I think last week was Prestini and Venom. Obviously, Sky said like they had really bad communication issues last year, right? Well, this is 3 out of the same 4, right? Unless Neptune was the
Not
major
gonna
contributor.
much, like,
Yeah, you're not changing
Yeah.
much. So obviously the communication issues are just going to keep on coming, right? So um, we've heard, I think it was Kenny and one other person say that Venom was the best communicator they've ever played with. So that's an instant fix. And I also think Venom is I think he came into a raw system last year where he kind of got, he was that entry SMG and he kind of got the, I still don't think he did that bad. And there was a lot of praise for him coming out of that LA Thieves camp, and then he just got benched. Which again, everyone blames Cap, but if Cap was so high on him, why would he bench him? Um, but there's like a lot of potential there, and I think Prestini is a veteran who wants to win and will do anything to win. And I think he's obviously really good on communication. I think if you went those two with Skies and then found like someone to step into that fourth role, this to be a Slayer, because I think they would need a Slayer that just goes out there and does the thing. Then whether that's Awakening, whether that's someone from the Challenger side, who knows? But yeah, it's just interesting how they've gone about their off season. And again, we don't know everything, and you don't even know if this is the set roster. So it's too early to be overly critical of Florida, especially when we haven't seen their final roster and how the game's even going to be next season.
I think Venom would be good to see him get another go, just because, like, not only does he seem to be, I think he was a very fun player to watch when he got his chance, but also seems like a great personality. He's someone that I want to be around the scene from what I saw him in content and such. But the other two teams because for now we can't really speak too much on what's going on with Paris or what's going on with this Chicago spot, which is up in the air. Even though Cloud9 have been talking about it, but I don't know who NRG are going to sell it to. But the other two rosters, Toronto and Minnesota Rokkr, Crone comes out and says that he believes they're going to be sticking. The Toronto one, I think, is great news. Personally, as like European COD fan, like I think that Cleanix could have been a fantastic SMG duo to someone else here. Like there could have been, I mean, Cleanix into a number of these teams would have been pretty disgusting, I think. At the same time, I think that the Toronto team was pretty perfect for a reason. I think that if they had have sold him elsewhere, getting a replacement for Kleenex, especially with the chemistry that squad has, would have been basically impossible. Like the only person you could even upgrade Kleenex for would be a BZ, and even then you don't know how that's going to fit into the system and the roster and the chemistry he has with Insight and the coaching stuff and everything. So good on Kleenex and for fielding his options and probably signing a let's say a larger piece of paper for next season than he would have done otherwise. But it's great to see that they're sticking together. That I think makes sense. I mean, of course, power rankings going into next season, everyone's going to have FaZe. Probably everyone's going to have Toronto just based on the last couple of months, and then it's a free-for-all from there. But the Rokkr one to me is a question because we just talked about Florida in the sense that every other team seems to be getting better. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, especially if you actually might be getting worse by getting rid of Neptune. And I wonder if Rokkr find themselves in a similar boat here, because we've been talking about how some of these teams are like, a top 4 teams, right? So we talked about Los Angeles Thieves and LAG, and maybe you could even throw New York in there as kind of like, they've certainly got potential to be a top 4 roster. But then you've also got OpTic Dallas, you've also got FaZe, you've also got Toronto Ultra in the same conversation. And then you've got Minnesota Rokkr, a team that won the Stage 5 major, that's now finding themselves kind of in this weird spot where, despite still having potential to win, their potential may be rapidly decreasing with all these other rosters massively upgrading. So it's like, at the end of the day, looking at that roster of Standy, Attach, Major Maniac, and Priester, I'm not sure how you can clearly upgrade it. So I'll give them that. But it feels like by not doing anything, the way I see this going, just before I hand it over to Austin, is that they won't win an event. They'll have to make a change, and like they kind of go down as the team that won that stage 5 major once, but didn't have much success after that. That's kind of how I see it going, based on how this has gone. So maybe they could have done something here, but I don't blame them for not doing so.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Minnesota. Obviously, those guys like playing together. They feel confident. They ended the season better than they started, and a lot of the stages they actually finished 3-2, but they ended would start in like losers. So they were getting like the short end of the stick a lot of the time. They definitely feel like they could have done a better year. So I understand that. I feel like they're probably in the same position, like 6th through 9th. They'll have their highs where they're clicking, and again, we don't know the game because you know, Standy had a lot of potential last season. Attach found his groove, but he was inconsistent throughout the year. And Preston was also inconsistent throughout the year. So, and they were figuring things out on the AIR side. So maybe we see this team reach the highs that they had this season. Maybe they come out because a lot of the rosters that we have talked about have a lot of risk with the reward, and obviously not every team can just come out on top and have all the reward without any risk. So there will be teams that have been rumored to come out and fall apart. So that gives Minnesota a chance to, build on the chemistry that they built throughout this season and then move up. But obviously, I think it's still a big. It's not a big risk, but I feel like they still have a potential to get better because I feel like they're a very versatile team. But on the Toronto side, I do love that Toronto stayed together. They were clear cut the number 2 team this year. I feel like if they didn't stick, it would have been one of those big like what if stories. Like like they could have came back this year and been even better. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen too many rumored teams. I don't think I've seen any rumored teams that I think are better than this Toronto team yet. Obviously, we haven't seen how the game's gonna play, but this Toronto team had such great teamwork and they were such a scary S&D team. I just don't see any roster right away that sticks out to me, and I say like that team's better than Toronto, right? And the thing with Toronto is not only are they love playing together, have great chemistry, they also have a great coaching staff. They have their roles are just so clearly they just fit together like a puzzle, right? Like you have Insight, who's like that stationary back AR, who's just okay with playing spawns and playing really slow. Then you have Cammy, really aggressive. You have your entry SMG, and then you have your Bance, which is like your IGL, your selfless SMG. Like everything just fits together so perfectly that all these other rosters that we've talked about, it's like if this happens, or if this player plays like this, or if this player's okay playing a minor role, right? And with Toronto, it's just like if they stick together, right? So I do think this Toronto team is going to be in the same exact spot this season where they're competing for championships. So I am happy they stuck together.
Same, and they were my favorite team to watch throughout this entire year for sure. Just because it was so unexpected early on for them to be such a force, and for them to stick, it's great for going into next year because I've got like really high expectations for them. With Rokkr, I think the one thing we know for sure is that they should be a really strong S&D team yet again. It would be a surprise if they are, pretty bad at S&D. The only question mark is their respawn that seemed to be pretty inconsistent throughout the whole Cold War season. And obviously stage 4, the S&D was pretty bad, but moving on. I think, yeah, they have the opportunity though, like many teams this year, to make upgrades throughout the season. It's not really such a big deal if you don't make a change at the start of the season or in the postseason because they still have that opportunity. And I think finishing the year on such a high last year with the win in top 4 at champs, it would be kind of dumb to make that change. So yeah, I'm not too worried about either of those teams. Obviously, Toronto should still be in that top 3, top 4 question, like no questions asked. But yeah, with Rokkr, I think it just depends if they can continue the high of the end of this year, then they should be all right.
I think that's fair enough. And I mean, cracking Rostermania discussion we've had. Questions in the chat for those in Twitch chat right now. The final topic I kind of wanted to touch on real quick before we go to some questions is a bit on CoD Vanguard because we saw the alpha come out, we've got the beta. I'm pretty sure by the time this VOD goes live on YouTube, actually probably soon after the embargo lifts or whatever. So there's gameplay that the pros are going to throw up. I saw some tweets today that Simp was almost dropping 100 on some of these pros and content creators. So that I guess is exciting for you guys. But at the same time, there has been some downside. I think Clayster was kind of tweeting about the frustrations that he has looking at some of these decisions they're making and copy and pasting from Modern Warfare, for example, the mini map, which seems to be the Modern Warfare style. There's also the dead silence thing that Scump was certainly talking about. Seems like it was kind of talked about in the alpha, but now it's in the beta state. You'd think that some things could have got changed, and probably how it is in beta is going to be how it is in the actual game itself. And that's dead silence being a field upgrade again, which is obviously not ideal for search and destroy. At the same time, there has been a fair bit of talk that dead silence is maybe less necessary in this game just because there's the footsteps are quieter than they were before, which means that maybe you can get away with making some plays without necessarily needing your field upgrade in dead silence to make it work. But still, it's not ideal news. Scump didn't seem particularly happy about it. Some of the other pros as well, kind of wondering why are we going back to this Modern Warfare style. But maybe that'll be it for the Modern Warfare integrations, Austin. But I don't know about that.
So, I like a lot of like the pub stuff doesn't sound great, but like when you think about it for competitive, for private matches, you can obviously turn on red dots for minimap. So I'm not really worried about that. The dead silence thing, as long as the footsteps aren't overly like, as long as footsteps aren't loud, but only the sliding is and breaking like doors and stuff is, then the dead silence quiets that's okay. I'm okay with that. We can make that work, right? I will say a lot of the pros have been playing the game lately, and I've heard really positive things. Whereas in past games, it has not been positive, and it was more like, we're gonna need to change X, Y, and Z to have a decent year. Where this year, I'm hearing a lot more positivity for the competitive side, not the pub side. Obviously, pub side there's a lot that could be changed. I will say that Sledgehammer is listening a lot, so obviously people are making it very known what they like and don't like. So there is a very, very high chance. You got to remember this beta has been done for a while, so there's a very, very high chance we get the game launch and a lot of stuff has changed, right? So yeah, I've seen Chris Simp was dropping. He was dropping over 100 kills in multiple lobbies. It was disgusting. So there's a lot of positives to be worked on, and we got to remember it's still a beta, it's still an alpha, and the final game that we're getting in 2 months is not going to be the game that you are seeing right now. So it pretty much the only thing I was overly worried about was squad spawns because it's the same MW engine, but it's not. It doesn't sound like we are getting those back. Maybe we still do, but that's the only thing I was overly really worried about in lack of maps. But we got 16 off the rip.
Not bad.
Yeah. I do like that OpTic and like Scump and Formal are kind of threatening not playing. Well, obviously Formal's not playing but he threatened that it was because of the game, and Scump saying he might take a year off if the game's pretty much just Modern Warfare 2. But yeah, I feel like so we have the doors that are coming back. We've got no red dot, which might only be in pubs. I'm just hoping that footsteps. Do you guys remember Inconspicuous in World War II?
Oh baby. It's a
Yeah, and
throwback.
so like it just made like the footsteps only like you can only hear them if it's like within 5 meters or like pretty close. That I think would be perfect. And then just have dead silence as like that extra little bit of pure silence. So I think we're in a pretty decent spot. I'm just hoping that we don't get a similar year to Modern Warfare or too similar, because for me that was one of the deadest years of competitive COD ever. Like I would only watch matches that I cared about because dude, that shit was so bad.
It was
Honestly. And
tough. Agreed.
I think Cold War, we took it for granted, and we'll look back, obviously, and be like, damn, that was actually a pretty decent year of COD.
Yes,
And then,
this is a fire take.
yeah, and we're going to, we forgot how boring Modern Warfare could be. So, yeah, let's just hope that they haven't forgotten either, because my goodness, we could be in for a long one, boys.
I think the year after this, we probably are. But I do have faith that Sledgehammer can pull through and Austin saying the right thing. So I'm excited at the very least. But yeah, let's go to some questions. I've been cracking on a while here. The first one that kind of stood out from Lightning Pandas for the win briefly was the discussion on kind of the New York Subliners like SMG duo. I know we did talk about it. We didn't necessarily try and stack it up with the other SMG duos in the league. So his explanation was, does that have the highest ceiling in Hydra and Neptune of any SMG outside of any SMG duo outside of FaZe, which I think is not a bad shout at all. I think that if they are both I mean, Hydra was ridiculous this year, as was Neptune. Even though I did see Neptune do like some of what Neptune was doing great things with was a Krig at times actually, which I thought was kind of strange. But sometimes he pulled that out to great effect. But yeah, looking through the other SMG duos, I don't know. I mean, I'd kind of like to say Afro and Nasty is right up there as well. But and of course there's others like I mean Drazah and Envoy Huke Asim that have been rumored right now, and I mean Mac and Predart half bad. Like there's a lot of good ones, but Hydra and Neptune, at least based on what we saw them do this year, they may be number two behind FaZe. I kind of want to throw the London guys in there as well, though. And then, of course, you've got to consider Bouncing Clinics. Like, in terms of raw slaying, they're never necessarily going to be there. But in terms of, like, being maybe the second best SMG duo, you could certainly argue they well are in terms of what they do. So it's a tough question, Austin.
I think their ceiling is 2, their floor is pretty low, but I feel like I like the London shout with those guys. I feel like this duo is more like Asim and Huke, where there's red flags, but there's also a lot of positives, and if it works out, it works out good. I think people are forgetting Scump and Shotzzy. That's going to be right up there. Bance and Kleenex. The way those two work, I put them above like a lot of people, and the Attach and Standy or Preston and Standy, whoever's running that second SMG this next game. So the upper echelon, and even Envoy Drazah, the upper echelon of SMG duos is all about consistency, right? So their ceiling could be the highest in the league, but their ceiling can also be their floor could be pretty low out of that. So it's all about finding the consistency and how you work together as a unit. So I do put them pretty high. Like in terms of raw gun skill, they're disgusting. But at the end of the day, it's how they fit in their team. So right now they're pretty high. I'll put them like top 4 off the rip, and then we'll see how they do going into the season.
Yeah, one thing I've kind of noticed is that every team seems to be looking at FaZe and what they're doing and what you guys are doing and trying to recreate it by like putting all their stock into like trying to get a really strong SMG duo and then letting the other pieces fall into place and then trying to get really good coaches, looking at obviously like yourself, getting really good analysts. And it's like if everyone's trying to copy FaZe, no one's gonna be FaZe. Like we're just kind of handing it to you guys on a plate almost. But that just might be me. Just seems how it's coming across. No one's really trying to break the meta and become a completely different team, or it's kind of just who's doing the best. Let's see if we can recreate that. And I don't think anyone can do that as well as you guys because you guys are already so far ahead. That's just me.
That's a good point though, because I think a lot of these teams are kind of trying to do that in the way that let's not necessarily get like the most raw talented AR who's going to get all the kills. Let's stack the talent in our roster. Not like Arstees couldn't do that if he was required to, but let's stack the talent in the SMG duo and like the flex role, and then just kind of let the AR do his thing and be the leader of the team. And it's probably a sensible kind of strategy to take given the importance of the SMG duo right now. But I kind of think we kind of see London, we see Seattle kind of going down a similar like a FaZe-esque route in a sense, which probably isn't a bad idea. So it's interesting. I'll leave you guys to choose the next couple of questions we do because getting kind of tired. It's nearly your boy's bedtime.
I'll do how do you think the new EU team in London compares to the EU talent on Toronto? I actually think that's a good question because I really hope Paris goes all European too, so we get at least 3 full European teams. I was kind of hoping,
probably not, but
I was kind of hoping we'd get at least 3, max 4 out of that. But what I like about London is they're trying to learn from Toronto. It feels like, right? So you have like your leader. Instead of having Bance, you have Trey, right? And you have that leadership there. Um, the nasty, like, no pun intended, but the nasty like MVP player on the team is going to be nasty, and like they're trying to mimic Cammy, right? So like even though they're different roles for each player, they're trying to fit the same like system around it, which I like. I like that a lot. So I think this London team is going to be like, trying to figure out which mode they want to hammer down first, which I probably think will be hard point yeah, I think a hard point will be their best, and then they'll probably be like you, I don't know how to put this. Like I think in like a year or two, they're going to be where Toronto is now, right? Because you think about it, Toronto. Think about all the players they have now in Modern Warfare, right? Like they weren't the best. They were in the bottom half of the league, and it took some time to develop, right? So I think London's trying to follow that same route, which I think is a really smart play call. And I think in like a year, maybe 2 years max, you're gonna see a lot of these players as like the best in the league, right? They're gonna be up there, just like how we view Cammy and Kleenex and Insight and Vance. Like that's going to be this London team. I think Nasty, Afro, Gizmo, like Trey, and there's a lot of European talent. I think you're going to see them up there in like the top 20 for players in the league.
Well put. I'll just move on to the next question then. I got a question here that is, do you think Paris or NRG or Chicago have an opportunity to still be a top 6 team with the talent left? And I think
Damn, it's a good
if we
one.
look at years gone past, there's always that one team. Like we look at Black Ops 4, it was Gen.G. We didn't expect to be like a top 4 team. Last year it was probably Florida. This year it was either New York or Toronto. There's always that one team that no one really expects to be at the top who find a way to really compete. And I think if they get the right talent and if they find the right players, it's possible that they could just mesh really well and get ahead in the meta almost by accident. So I wonder, who do you think they could get on that team that could bring that sort of cohesion that somehow manages to get a top 4 team, top 6?
A good
There's
question. It's tough. I'd have to think. I mean, I got a player list here. Go
there's
on,
there's a
Austin.
lot of talent. There's a lot of talent you can still mix together. Like on the SMG front, you have Vivid, you have
Yeah.
Venom, you have Prestini. Even though I think Prestini should probably try to transition over to an AR. On the AR side,
And
you have a temp. You have a lot of AR talent too. Even apathy if you want to go down the veteran route for your SNG. A lot of young guys and challengers, right? You have a lot of guys. So I think wherever the spot does go, I think the first hire you need to make is someone that's been in the scene, that's very knowledgeable, right? I think because coming in like this and resetting is one of the hardest things to do. I just hope they find someone that is knowledgeable that can guide them in the right direction because they could go down the easy route, right, and just pick up big name players, right? Just pick up a bunch of vets, just try to make that work, try to build a fan base that way, right? And if you want to go down that route, go down that route. But if you want to go down like the youth route, there's just multiple ways to do it, right? So there's I think there is a path to top 6, right? There is a path. So it's just tough. You just got to find the right blend, and you got to find players that are willing to work together and get better. So, but there is definitely a path for them to get. I bet you there's a path to get top 4.
Yeah. Benjo and Asim on the flanks suggested picking up the West R team from last year, but replacing Zap with Vivid. So it'd be Porlex, Venom, Gravity, and Vivid. And I feel like that team's a really good starting roster to have to be able to build upon, or even could just make an impact straight away. So yeah, there's a lot of good challenges talent out there. I feel like you just need to find players that are going to work well together and give you a solid grounding to what's it called? Fucking bounce up upon. Like, what's the way to say it? I lost my words, but it's a
I don't
good
know
it's a good
exactly. Someone
platform
let us
to
know
be
in the
able
chat.
to grow a
Yeah,
player.
yeah, yeah, yeah. To
Good
bounce
foundation.
up on, baby. Yeah,
Foundation.
foundation to
Ah,
Yeah,
build on, baby.
there we go.
There we go, Austin. We love to see
goodness.
it. Good stuff. But yeah,
Had a stroke.
precisely. I agree. I think that might be the way to do it if you want to succeed. I can't see. I don't know. It's going to be tough to form a team of 4 because it's almost kind of like what Paris tried to do last year, right? It's like, all right, what pieces can we put together? All right, let's get Classic in, let's get Temp in, let's get Scraps in, let's get Aqua in. That's going to be great. We've got loads of talent, and then not to win a single dollar of prize money the entire year, right? That's how it ended. So it's like, that's kind of that's kind of the route where you get the biggest name, most talented theoretical players that are left on the market on your team for the minimum, and that's the result. So probably it makes more sense to go for a team that on paper is less stacked, and I kind of like that Wester idea at least, and I wouldn't be surprised if you did go down a route like that, that you're trying to at least be reasonably good. And then when like stage 2 happens, stage 3 happens, and a lot of these big teams that are, well, let's say 2 of them or so are struggling, they're making moves, then you can be in a position to snap one of those free agents up and increase and upgrade your lineup. Like that's probably the way to play it. At least if I was doing it. But any of you guys got like one final question you want to point out before we close out the show?
Trying to look.
YouTube with your Rab's voice. I can get
There's
cracked if you want, Zed.
There's 5 most talented players in the league from a raw gun skill standpoint.
Oh man, okay. Okay.
Is that a question?
We can do that. I mean, it's a tough
Okay.
question.
Drizzle, exe, exec.
Should we get one out of the way? Tim.
And Simp's not a bad one. I mean, okay. Simp and Beezy. There you go.
Nice.
You know, this is revolutionary stuff. I'm gonna. Okay, maybe I could do.
Let's
mine.
do outside of our team.
Oh, I mean,
Outside of my team.
Why? You're really that cocky in your own team? Okay.
No,
All right,
I just
fair
because
enough.
like what am I
think
gonna?
it's a
I'm just
good
gonna put
idea.
all
I
4
think
of
it's a
our
good
guys,
idea.
and then
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Top 5 gun scale outside of phase. All right. Okay, I'm gonna throw in. I don't know how we're gonna do. We could do 5 each, or we could just throw a player in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chuck Kleenex in there to give him a shout. His gun skill is outrageous.
5?
I think he's in the top 5. I'll take
putting
Kleenex
at
top 5 gun skill in the game. Yeah, maybe 5. Maybe at 5. Maybe at 4. I don't know. Not like number 1 outside of phase, but in the top 5 outside of phase. I think.
Yeah. Okay. In my opinion, if I'm gonna go top 5, I would put Dashy in there,
Mhm.
Cammy,
Mhm.
Insight.
Insight is an interesting pick, to be fair.
Shotzzy, it's almost like his movement is the most key part of his gameplay, but I would put Shotzzy in there just because he's so good.
I think so.
And then 5, trying to think of good AR players, because when you think about shots,
Samuel Octane
Kenny.
LaRue.
ARs.
Kenny's a
Kenny's
good
up-
one, actually.
Sure.
Ooh.
I would just put Octane there. So Octane, Dashy, Cammy, Insight, Shotzzy for me, outside of phase. But that's just
Yeah, I
Cold
like
War.
that.
I think mine has got to be close to that. Go on, Austin.
I definitely like the insight pick. I remember I was watching at Champs, and I remember it was on Hardpoint on Raid. He was on like the laundry side, and he just snapped like so cleanly from like the rock heady to like up top art to bottom art, and I was just like, holy cow, this guy's cracked. I like insight. I would personally put Kenny. I like Kenny a lot. Cammy, I've never seen so many disgusting plays within one weekend than what he did at Champs. I do think Shotzzy. I think his gun skills is underrated. And then to finish it off, I would probably go. I would probably go Dashy. I do think Dashy's gun skill is pretty elite. That guy shoots straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think ours have all got to be kind of similar then, really, because I want to go Kleenex. I think Kleenex is for sure. I think Shotzi's got to be for sure. I think I've got to put Dashy in there. Like he's got to be top 10 raw gun skill, especially considering the phase guys. And then I've got 2 more to find. I think Kenny was a great shout. I think I want to give some love to Hydra. I think his like snapping abilities is absolutely ridiculous when you see him popping off. So I think I'd put him in my top 5 gun skill outside of phase. And then I probably should throw an AR player in there, even though I've kind of already got Dashy. But I don't know, I've got to put Cammy in there. I have to put Cammy in there. So
It's just hard to differentiate between
think that'll
AR
be
and
my 5.
SMG because it's like they're very different roles and like you get into extremely different gunfights. So you'd kind of have to give like a top 5 per AR and SMG because they're not really
Could
competitive.
do. Maybe we could do that another day. But that was a
That's a
good
good one.
question.
Yeah,
I appreciate
got some
it.
good questions today.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely
I
phenomenal.
really liked a lot of these.
Don't know what I was saying there. But yeah, fantastic. Anyway, we'll close out the show there. We'll talk to the chat a little bit after the stream ends. But yeah, we've had another phenomenal show. Thanks, chaps, for joining me. We'll be back this time next week, where I'm sure we're going to have had more announcements hitting the fan, and lots to discuss every single time. Hopefully, we'll have you for the whole hour and a half again, Lion. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks all for watching live on Twitch. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, we'd appreciate a like on the video. If you made it all the way to the end, comment down below to let us know that you made it all the way to the end. It's an impressive feat. And we've got, well, you've got Spotify, you've got Apple Podcasts as well. It's just wonderful stuff. So yes, thanks all for watching. Those who tuned in live, those watching after the fact, we appreciate all of you. Thanks all for watching as always, and we'll see you next time.